Hello and welcome back. I'm Dr. Marion Long and I'm the founder of Rhythm for Reading. Today I'm going to be talking about rapid learning in the context of emotional stress and effortful control. A recent study by the National Education Union's researchers of 14,000 teachers showed that 33% of state school teachers in England are stressed at work at least 80% of the time, as reported by Richard Adams, education editor of The Guardian newspaper on the 14th of April 2025. We know that schools are understaffed in the less affluent areas of the country, and this is where effortful control and emotional stress are seen and felt and contribute to a particularly heavy burden on the teachers. And this is where pupils may carry a substantial allostatic load as a result of early childhood adversity. Low-income children, as well as children who have experienced trauma and abuse and neglect and other adverse life experiences, may have lower levels of regulation-related skills than children from more affluent backgrounds. And yet, regulation-related skills may protect children from low-income families of some of the harmful effects of living in poverty by enabling coping skills such as emotional regulation. So it is really important that disadvantaged pupils are supported emotionally and given opportunities to build up their capacity for self-regulation. In the real world of the classroom, children are faced with sanctions if they do not learn or behave as expected. And for this reason, their preference might be to endure frustration rather than to risk admitting that they don't understand something. Asking a friend can also be risky if talking is not allowed and carries a penalty such as a detention. Effortful control is the unnamed elephant in the classroom, and it is an invisible energy that is simmering day to day in every single school. Effortful control builds the strength of character that is needed to keep going and to finish the task at hand. But when a workforce is depleted, there is a huge cost in terms of emotional strain, and over time this adds up. Here are some examples of effortful control. It's deployed when you're actually too hungry to concentrate. It's the brave attempt that children make to keep going when the work is too hard and they're trying not to give up. It's the steadfast patience of the teacher who knows the child does not have the capacity to follow the lesson and there's no extra support available. I feel that this is a topic which is hidden away even though it is so obvious. For example, a high value is placed on compliance. It is a desirable trait, even though the child's learning does not meet expectation. Compliance is also convenience. In this vein, we can mention here the marshmallow experiment. If you're not familiar with this rather unusual research study, it became famous about 20 years ago. A psychologist called Walter Mischel asked 3-year-old children to sit at a table in front of a marshmallow without eating it. If they managed not to eat it, there would be a reward of 2 marshmallows, and they were allowed to eat both of them. The experiment made light of an emotionally salient situation that placed the children in a dilemma. It was all about delaying their gratification, and although there was a choice to be made multiple times, there was actually no real emotional effort required because the children were simply asked to choose between 2 types of enjoyment, now or later. Emotional self-regulation is much more demanding than that. It includes the management of moods, which have a longer duration and may or may not lack a specific cause. Moods are more internal than external, and they're longer lasting than the temporary, fleeting nature of emotions. Music is frequently used as a regulating strategy to maintain or change a mood, an emotion, or an arousal level. It can help to achieve positive affective states and moods, as well as to help manage a negative state or a negative emotion. So how might music support children from disadvantaged backgrounds and those with early childhood adversity in particular? Thousands of studies show the positive effects of music. Music fosters pro-social behaviour, and this means it promotes helpfulness or kindness. It also promotes a shared sense of success and physical coordination, shared attention, shared motivation, and group identity. For example, it strengthens social bonds through the release of beta endorphins, which are the feel-good chemicals made by our own internal pharmacy during synchronized activities. Many psychology of music researchers have argued that from birth, music offers the possibility of constructing and regulating emotions, expressing and communicating and shaping relationships and situations. Professor Tia Donora showed that music is used informally in everyday life, helping an individual to action their own moods and emotions, their well-being, their health, and their agency. And Professor Colin Trevarthen showed how music is intrinsic to human communication between the parent and the child. Professor Alexandra Lamont showed how parents use music to soothe children to sleep. From young infants to youth at risk, a large body of research studies show the impact of music on emotional regulation. For example, moving in time together promotes social bonding between 6-month-old infants and their caregivers, and group music making in 4-year-olds enhances pro-social behaviour. Professors Evangelos Himenides and Susan Hallam have documented all of these studies in an amazing book called The Power of Music, which was published in 2023. And I've drawn heavily on that amazing book in making this blog post, so I'd like to acknowledge that right now. Projects funded by the UK charity Youth Music showed a range of positive outcomes associated with disaffected young people not in education, employment or training when engaged in music making activities. Outcomes included increased motivation to engage in education, employment, voluntary activity, gaining qualifications, heightened aspirations, and a more positive attitude to learning. The young people developed transferable skills, including basic academic skills, listening, reasoning, decision-making, concentrating, focusing, team working, timekeeping, goal setting, and meeting deadlines. The results showed enhanced well-being, increased self-esteem, self-respect, pride, empowerment, sense of achievement, a sense of confidence, expansion of friendships, trust, and improved relationships with adults. Aggression, hyperactivity, and impulsivity decreased as these young people learnt to control their emotions. An additional benefit of the projects was that the young people said engaging with music had broadened their horizons, had increased their awareness of different cultures and also different traditions. Let's bring this back into the schools now. Motivation comes up as an important question when I speak with teachers about Rhythm for Reading and the impact the programme has on children's reading skills. Head teachers often ask me, how can you isolate this from motivation? And this is a really good question because engagement with music is associated with higher levels of motivation. Let's tease this apart. So learning tasks impact motivation. Failure or success in a task has a negative or a positive effect on self-esteem and motivation, and that is carried forwards to the next task. So, if children experience success in a task, this leads to further rewards in terms of feelings of well-being and the desire to carry on. I think in terms of Rhythm for Reading, we've got a lot of beta endorphins as well because everything that we do is synchronized. According to Professor Susan Hallam, the more closely the goals of learners and teachers and educational systems are matched and aligned, the more likely that effective learning will occur. So motivation is crucial to the way that children perform at school, and it's closely linked to self-perception of ability, self-efficacy and aspirations. So if we circle back to Rhythm for Reading, what do the children say at the end of the programme? Well, they report feeling more calm, more happy and more peaceful, which really suggests a shift in their emotional control. The rhythm-based approach showed a statistically significant effect on lower-attaining pupils compared with a control group matched on age, reading level and rhythmic awareness in the original research that I did on this. And higher attaining children made small and insignificant gains in reading. The thing is that at the beginning of the experiments, the higher attaining children were already above age expectation. So I didn't think it was that surprising that they were not going to increase to a great extent. But for the children who were below expectation, it was possible to see the impact of music on their reading. Teaching the children to read musical notation in those experiments and also in the Rhythm for Reading programme empowers them because they discover that reading musical notation is actually much easier than they had thought. So in terms of motivation, this alone may have helped the lower attaining pupils to catch up and see themselves as children with a brighter academic future. So just recently, this is what an 8-year-old told me at the end of the Rhythm for Reading programme. I asked her about her concentration and her classwork, and this is what she said. Yes, I'm going way more higher than before because I was in the middle of English. my concentration, I'm ignoring people when they talk. And I asked her, what do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? And she said, when they talk to me, I get annoyed and then I think of my favourite thing and then I get peaceful. That is an indication that things have changed for her emotionally. The programme took 10 weeks, as always, and following the 10 weeks, in terms of reading age, she had made 21 months of progress in reading comprehension and 11 months of progress in reading accuracy. And she was one of many who've made amazing progress. And in the context of the thousands of studies from the Power of Music that demonstrate how music can change learning and can change emotional control, these findings are actually not that unexpected. It's really important to specify who the Rhythm for Reading program helps and why. So that is actually the reason for doing these blog posts. More broadly, I'd like to point out that schools need greater resourcing. They need to have resources so that they can support these children. And if we do put the right interventions in place, then disadvantaged children and communities can really benefit. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you again next time.